Marcus go talk to y'all about credit card funding, how you get it at 0% interest, and how to get y'all a whole bunch of money. So lock in, pay attention.
Thank you, Abram. Thank you, Lincoln, Ivan, and everybody for being here. My name is Marcus. I'm 25 years old, and in the last 5 years, I dug really deep into the business credit game, essentially talking to thousands of different lenders from basically every single state, including Hawaii, Alaska, um, North Dakota, pretty much every single state. And so today, here's my promise to you, right? In the next 40 minutes, if you pay attention to everything that we go over, you're going to learn how to access $100,000 to $250,000 of 0% interest business credit year after year, essentially forever, as long as you're still in business. Well, why is this important? Imagine playing this game of Monopoly and the other people that you're playing against have access to 2, 3 times as much liquidity as you do, just because they are resourceful and they use the tools that are available to everyone here. But before I kind of get into it, who am I? At 21, I co-founded and operated Gotcha Incorporated to $2 million in revenue. From 21 to 25, I ran my consulting firm, hitting 5.8 million in revenue, helping 1,200 different entrepreneurs secure over $110 million in unsecured funding. But it was not always like this. In the beginning, I had no idea what I was doing, and I needed money real bad to buy stuffed animals. I know that sounds crazy, but that's how I got into the game. At 21, I founded an arcade in the Florida Mall. We really quickly scaled to $250,000 a month. Average client was paying us $100, and we had to supply these stuffed animals, as you can see in that bag. We had to order hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuffed animals every single month from China. And me being 21, operationally, capital-wise, it was pretty extensive. I needed to get my money from some other source. And so that's when I learned to fund myself. And after I funded myself, I helped my partners, as well as friends, with the same system that helped me scale my business to that $2 million mark. And that really became my business. Matrix Master Group formed in 2021. We helped over 1,200 different people get access to $110 million in unsecured funding. And it was all thanks to my team. As you can see on the left picture, that's us in Aspen, Colorado, at our annual retreat this February. It was a great time. But enough about me. Let's talk about you guys. Who here has a credit score? Raise your hand if you have a credit score. Yeah, it should be everybody, right? If you raise your hand, all of you have the ability to access hundreds of thousands of dollars in capital at 0% without providing a single piece of documentation. You might be asking, how is that possible? Well, in America, we have a nationwide adopted risk scoring model. It's the FICO system. Combine that with our free market economy and our access and plethora of options when it comes to the banks, we have a really, really solid mix where now we have the ability to take advantage of these promotional periods that these banks give in order to entice you to come bank with them. And so I'm talking about 0% for 12 months, 18 months. Sometimes that extends year after year, 36 months, 48 months. This is 4 or 5 years of 0% interest. And so you are blessed. If you raise your hand, if you look Japan, Netherlands, Spain, France, the UK, they don't have a FICO system. They don't have a nationwide accepted scoring model. So all of their documentations that are required for loans, they don't have no doc loans, right? They don't have access to capital that Americans do. And so you see Canada and Australia, they do have a FICO system, but they don't have as many banks as we do. And so they can't really take advantage of the system like we can. So if you raise your hand, you're blessed. And it's really just all about reverse engineering this approval model for you to get access to the capital for whatever you want, whether it's your business or whether it's for your new construction, whatever it may be. And so this is Colby Bentley. He joined, I believe, like a month and a half ago, something like that. He secured $127,000 of 0% interest. That's going to be 0% interest for the next 3 years, even if he fails in his business. and that amount is going to go up every single year. So next year it's probably going to be 150, the year after maybe 180, and he's going to be able to use that for whatever else, land, soft costs, architectural plans, whatever it is. Although that's not my specialty. So 99% of you probably fit into one of these categories. Tier 1, you're going to need to essentially repair your credit profile. Tier 2, this is when you start to become qualified enough to go into the banks and secure these bigger lines. And tier 3 is, we're talking more like Abram, more like Paul, people who have revenue, who have documentation to prove their empire. We're talking about hundreds, if not millions of dollars in a line of credit. But it all starts with the same thing. The foundation, it's your personal credit. Who here has a secured loan? I'm talking about mortgages, auto loans. Yeah, pretty much everybody does. Who here wants to try to take a stab at the definition of a secured loan? Exactly, collateral, right? As Lincoln said, there's something to back up the loan. It's almost as if I were to ask you, right, could I borrow $50,000? I'll give you this ring, right? And let's just say it's worth 50, and I give it to you. Would you let me borrow $50,000, right? Probably. If I don't pay her, she just takes the ring, sells it. Now, same deal, but no ring. I just want $50,000. How would you feel? Exactly. And so with business credit, it's actually unsecured. There is no collateral, right? So there is no car, there is no home. They're not foreclosing on, your home. They're not repoing your car. They're not, putting a lien against your business. We're talking about unsecured lending. Only available in America. You just have to learn how to play this game. And so my friend, his name is Robert. He's a high-level commercial TD banker. He calls them character loans. So how do they determine my character? That's the question you should be asking. What do they check in order for them to determine, to give me the amount of money that I'm looking for to push my projects forward? Well, let's go through it. This is essentially what you need in order for you to start qualifying for at least $100,000 of 0% interest business credit. We're talking about less than 7% utilization on each revolving account, at least 2 primary credit accounts, no derogatory marks in the last 2 years, at least one $5,000 or more in a personal revolving credit line, as well as no newly acquired credit cards, lines, or products over the last year. Essentially, that's all going to boil down to a 700 plus credit score. But really, credit score doesn't matter. You need to kind of shift your thinking. Score is just a summary of the things on your file. It's about the thickness or the thinness of your file, how stacked you are as a borrower. And we're going to kind of go over each and every factor because all of these factors are things that can be manipulated by you, by knowing the information, whether it's long-term or short-term. And so let's cover the first one. 7% utilization on each revolving credit account. So it's not the average of all accounts, it's per account. So if you can see right here, this is my Navy Federal card. It has a $25,000 limit. And you can see it says balance updated October 12th. You want to make sure that you pay attention to that date because every 30 days, that's when Experian goes into that account and takes a screenshot of what the balance is, what the utilization is, and reports it for a whole month. And so if you're about to do a major refinance and you have a balance and it's about to report, your interest rate, or 1-2% interest rate difference on $1 million loan, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars, right? And so you really want to pay attention to that date. Before we go through a round of funding, we also want to make sure that every credit account is below 7%. And if you can't, there are other ways like using business credit cards to hide that balance. That is higher level stuff. We'll get to it in the future. 2+ credit accounts. This is the story of Joe and Bob. Same thing here. Joe comes and asks you for money. Joe has borrowed from maybe Abram, maybe Paul, so 2 people. And maybe he's borrowed $1,000 a piece. And Joe asks you for $5,000. Maybe. I mean, you borrow from two people, you borrow $1,000 each. Like 5,000 seems maybe a little bit of a stretch. Now let's just say Bob comes to you with that same question, but he's borrowed from half this room and paid every single person back, right? It just treat the banks like regular person. Like, look, like I've borrowed from half the room. Here's all. Look, this is my credit account. I have 20 open accounts. I have $100,000 of available personal credit that I don't touch. It's just my foundation. It's what gets me in the door, right? Although I'm young, I talk to every bank, any bank. They see my personal credit profile. They understand. I understand how to borrow money, and so you really want to build this up as soon as possible. No derogatory marks. So, actually, I have a couple clients in this room, so I know a couple people who have derogatories, right? Whether it's the medical, the divorce, things happen. Things can be deleted, erased. This is a client. I think we deleted over like 400 accounts. You can see like inquiries, late payments, collections. We're talking about, this is our old stuff, but lots of accounts deleted. Pretty much everything is able to be deleted using consumer laws. So if you have derogatories, whether it's with us or by yourself, study the consumer laws, take care of your stuff, and make sure your credit is ready to get funded. So lastly, you need comparable credit. We kind of touched up on this. Imagine I borrowed, $25,000 from Paul, and I came and asked you for 30,000. Comparable, right? I borrowed 25 grand. Let's just say I've only borrowed 5 grand and I asked you for 30. Probably not. And so Navy Federal is excellent. Even with 680 credits, I've seen people get 20,000 off the rip. DCU is another great bank. They pull Equifax. It's just a one-time application. You just have to be a member. But essentially, before you go through a business funding round, you want to make sure you have at least one personal account with 10,000 or more the merrier, and have it aged for a year so that you have that comparable credit for you to draw from when you're asking for higher amounts on the business side. And that's really, really important, as we'll get to know, because with business credit, once you have a fundable business entity, I know who here has an LLC? All right, most everybody. The people that don't pay attention to this, because when you name your entity, the worst thing you can do is pigeonhole it into a certain industry type. So you want to name it something bigger than life, something you can represent pretty much any business. If you were to name it like Kayla's Real Estate or Marcus Flips Cars, you go to the bank and you're kind of pinned down into an industry type, and they'll give you what they think, you know, you qualify for based on the industry type, based on the cash flow they've read from the other businesses in the same industry. And so make sure, whether it's an LLC, S Corp, or C Corp, new or existing, that you don't pigeonhole your name. And as long as you have that, plus the things that we covered on the personal side, you're ready to go. And so the next steps, you want to go to bankbranchlocator.com. This is Nashville. I just picked the random zip code yesterday night. And I picked a couple of the premier banks available here. I'm talking Chase, Bank of America, Fifth Third, First Citizens, and First Horizon. I don't know. Chase might be Experian plus EQ here. Bank of America is TransUnion. Fifth Third is TransUnion. First Citizens is Equifax, and First Horizons is Experian. All of these, except for Bank of America, have a 0% interest card for 12 months. All of these can also give you a line of credit. 3 of these can give you 0% forever. Fifth Third will give you a line of credit based on 3 months of your statements, even if you don't have a relationship. First Citizens is great. They're underwriting for my construction to perm loan. They care about developers more so than other bigger regional banks. Plus, they have lines of credit, business cards, and sometimes if you just do a deposit of 35 grand, they'll give you 35 grand on a business credit card at 0%. You can take your money out, double your liquidity. Once you have all these banks in order, this is the order you want to apply for things. You want to do your soft pulls first. These are things that don't affect your credit score. Then you want to do the Experian-based applications. You can clean your Experian afterwards. 24 hours, inquiries will be gone. Chase. Once you do your Chase, then TransUnion, and your Equifax banks. And then you can clean and repeat this process as long as you have enough banks to go to. And so in Florida, I'm talking California, Texas, some parts of Boston, New York, there's a lot of banks. I mean, Tennessee has decent amount of banks as well, but in terms of the top regional and national banks, there's like 8. So you're good for like 1.5, maybe 2 rounds of funding. With the type of products, you want to make sure you go for these in order. If you go backwards, what ends up happening is once you get the personal loans first, those report to your personal file. And the moment it reports to your file, it messes up your debt to income, it messes up underwriting. And so if you want to do a full stack, that's the order you should go into. I've had a person named Hyomin Che from California. He was building, anyone had like the mochi donuts? They're called like dochi. No, not here, maybe. Either way, he had 10 locations in California. He moved to Michigan to build 10 locations. He just needed as much money as possible. So he didn't care if it was a personal loan or personal line. He got access to pretty much every single product, total of $800,000. But he had to go in this order specifically, or essentially he would not have gotten, the bottom 4 or the 5, whatever it may be. And so some of you might be asking, business credit cards, isn't there a cash advance fee? Isn't it like 20%? What is this guy talking about? Well, if you have a friend that has a merchant processing account, it charges 3%, 3 to 4%. Cash back on that card is 1 to 2, so you're paying 1 to 2% as a cash advance fee to access the credit in cash. And so we provide that service at TripleM and Matrix. This way, essentially, you can get the 0% credit in your bank account for whatever you want at 1 to 2%. That's the cheapest money you're ever going to find. How are you going to find 1%? Even like if you borrow from family, like there's got to be some rate to like make it make sense. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, as I said in the beginning, 0% forever. Let's get into it. It really heavily relies on these 3 pivot banks: Bank of America, Chase, and American Express. Let's start with Chase. Chase has 10 business credit cards. Every single one of them is fine, except for one. You should never ever apply for the Inc. Premier card. The credit behind that card is different. You can't move it into any other card. Meaning, if you get $100,000 on this Inc. Premier card, it's going to increase your internal credit exposure with the best bank in the world, and you're not going to be able to move that 100,000 into the 2 different products that give you the 0% interest for a year. And so most of you probably have this card if you know what you're doing. But once you take a deeper look and you basically use each and every card as a vessel to hold the credit you are approved for within the entity, you're going to be able to move everything but $500 into the next card, giving you access to a prolonged 0% interest period as long as you're able to pay off that balloon payment every 12 months. And that balloon payment, it can come from a personal loan, can come from a line of credit, might even be able to come from a construction draw as long as you pay it back. And so very, very flexible, guys. And so this is an example, but this is one of my LLCs. But this is an example for one of my LLCs. March 2023, I got access to $50,000. And then the next year, April 2024, another 25 grand. Combined the limits, 75 grand. June 2024, I got the Inc. preferred card for 58,000. Combined the limits, and that's at 140,000 at 0%. Last 3 years, I'm about to make it 4 years come, I believe, February, just by applying for, the next 0% card. And so this mechanic that you see here, I like to call it the reallocation plus the 0% longevity play. It's actually available with Amex as well, both 0% 12 months cards. Amex has all these. These are charge cards, so no hard limits. These are excellent for building internal trust with the banks. but you can't move that credit limit into the 0%. So be aware, right? These other cards that you see on the right and then this other screen, all of these you can actually move the credit. And so a little hack for you: if your credit is a little thin, you can get a 0% card on the Blue Cash or the Blue Plus. And if you have a Delta number, you can get like 35 grand just by flying with Delta. And then you can move $33,900 into the approval. And now all of that is at 0%, even if you have very, very thin credit. And so same thing, Amex though, there is a little bit of a buffer. So first 12 months, 0%, 12 to 24 months is 0%. From month 24 to month 30, you're gonna have to watch out in the mail for a letter. They'll give you a promotional period, like a QR code to apply again. Once you get that letter, you're good to go. You apply, and then you move all the credit that you have remaining in the non 0% card. You move it over, and bam, all the credit you just got over the last 2 years is 0% again. Wow. Same thing for, this is my story, I guess. 2022, I got 30 grand, moved everything but $1,100. That's just their limit. I don't know why. Had, ended up with 35,000. It's been like month 31, something like that, month 32 for me. And I use it for mentorships. It's like an investment for myself, put it on a card. I know I'm not going to pay it off in 2-3 years. Yeah, it was a great leveraging other people's money. Bank of America, a little bit trickier. So we got 4 cards, 9 months, 9 months, 9 months, and 7 months, 34 months total. Stepping in the door with them is the hardest part. A lot of people get little tiny limits because they just don't set it up well. They're the most conservative. And so you really want to build that checking account, put some money in, stop, let that money season, maybe even open up a brokerage account and then apply. If you do it correctly though, like Mr. Andrew, he was able to get, I believe he's at $130,000 on the Bank of America card, and it's been at 0% for over the last 27 months, and that 130 grand at 0% again for another 7 months. And every time the 0% comes up, he just uses his HELOC to pay off the balance, and then he just liquidates the card at 0% to pay back his HELOC, and he just grows this trust within the bank. That number, it's a big number, but really what it is trust, right? That bank is extending you and believing that you'll pay them back $90,000 unsecured. There's no collateral. And so building this relationship is great. Pretty much same thing, same mechanic here. But let's go over a couple case studies. Daisha, one of my favorite clients. She came, essentially she needed credit repair. We took her from A to Z. But I think it's better. So you can see, I believe January 2024, she onboarded into our repair system. She got access to over $100,000 in funding by May 2024. And then she liquidated $35,000 from American Express. And this is our internal log. So you can see the numbers. She took that money. And then the year after, on June 10th, she sold a new build. And I'm like, what? This is before I wanted to build my house. I'm like, what do you mean you built the house with this money? He's like, yeah, look at this address. She's like, she built this home in Fort Myers, Florida for $125 a square foot, sold it for $214, made her about $100,000 in the deal. And she came to me 3 years before, or 2.5 years before this, with multiple late payments, like a 660, 680 score, not close to this at all. But she stuck to the process. Got access to the money, and actually made her new build possible. And we also deal with super complicated files. And so I know a lot of people here higher level probably already have business credit. This is Harriet, 800 score, but she had like $150,000 of existing business credit card debt, business lines of credit card debt, business loan debt. It was a mess. But obviously she needed our help. She was paying, I think, like $3 grand a month in interest. And so I created her like a 3-step plan. Just lots of different steps. Same plan, by the way. And what ended up happening over the course of 4 or 5 months, she got around 31 on the credit card and 19 on the line of credit with Wells Fargo. PNC got her a 50,000 line of credit and loan. 60,000 at 10.75% approved with PNC or Fifth Third. In total, she got 75 grand reallocated at 0%, 60,000 at 10.75%, 50,000 with Wells Fargo, 50,000 on the loan, and 50,000 on the line with PNC, 40,000 on the QuickBooks loan, total of $325,000 to push her projects through. And right before this, she had 150 grand of high interest debt. And so there's plenty of lenders, plenty of products. You just got to know which ones are going to lend to you. And in case 3, if there's any really, really big whales out there, this is Vince. He's the CFO of Audio and Hearing. You might have seen their brand. It looks like an AirPod. Sometimes shows up in like the airplane ads when you're sitting on the airplane. But yeah, around 40 million in revenue. He got approved for $950,000 at 8.57%. He did collateralize his inventory. It was one line of credit with PNC. I mean, his revenue figures were massive, but again, if you have the revenue and you can prove it, tax return, 3 months of statements, the world opens up. Final takeaway. Just remember, Bank of America, Chase Amex, 0% forever. It changed the course of my life. I truly believe it can change the course of your life. And other than that, thank you.